Open the meeting as it comes to order. As everyone rise and please receive the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Amin, please call the roll for attendance.
Emerita,
Not present.
Jorge Gardyn,
Present.
Geoffrey N,
Present.
Anthony Cornachio,
I be here.
Richard Gutierrez,
Present.
Faruque, I'm here. John Donnelly, absent. Chair will do not have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Amin. As we do not have a quorum, I will declare that we cannot convene a meeting. I will announce that the next Capital and Finance Committee meeting will take place at a day and time certain on October of 2012, with a specific date and time to be announced in accordance with the notice requirements of the rules of the Board of Trustees, specified in Article 4, Section 4 of the rules. The next board meeting will take place at a date and time certain in October 2012, with a specific date and time to be announced in accordance with the notice requirements of the rules of the Board of Trustees, specified in Article 4, Section 4 of the rules. As we do not have a quorum, I will not move that, but I'm just announcing it. As always, I extend we did try to send out enough notice to as many people as possible. Do extend my apologies. Obviously, I know that we do have a speakers list, and I will invite anyone that wants to speak to do so, with the caveat that because we don't have a quorum, that they will not be a part of any official minutes because there is not an official meeting. So with that said, I know I do have a speakers list here, the first name being Emerita.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
I had a prepared statement, but under these circumstances, I'm not going to read it. I do want to make a statement, though, that I find it very frustrating. I appreciate the fact that Ken called me last night and apprised me of the fact they didn't have a quorum. But from the same token, this wasn't a scheduled meeting. This was a meeting that you said, and I just wonder, without explanation as to what happens without even 24-hour notice when people rearrange their schedules. It's not convenient for any of us, and I'm sure yourselves also, to be here at 7:30 in the morning. There's items that we really felt were urgent that we needed to discuss with the whole group so that we were going to call some level of action. We don't have the ability to do that today. But it is frustrating, and I start to question as a leader on this campus of how can you really work effectively when you don't have your group together. And it concerns me in that cohesiveness is something that I really think that you need to be able to have. And one of the things that I was going to raise today was the fact that we've worked for the last 18 months on that contract extension. And without getting into specifics, I really had a very strong concern whether or not you all knew the dynamics of that and the impact of that. Because it wasn't about economics and it wasn't about budgetary issues. It really ultimately came out on September 5th that it was not about any of those issues. And it was very clear to us that it was not about those issues. But again, under these circumstances, it doesn't make sense for me to go into the details. So I just want to express my concern about the board, about the composition of the board, and this is awkward because it's almost like walking into a classroom and saying to the students that are there, attendance really has to be approved. You're the ones that are here, so I don't want to feel like I'm quote-unquote lecturing you. But I hope you bring the message back to the entire group that if something comes forward as something that is crucial as the contract extension, I know Mr. Prime, you were there too, but it almost felt to me, and I'm speaking for myself now, not even for the entire union, that John Gross and the attorneys are playing a very, very large role. And I almost question whether or not it isn't John Gross who's making some of these decisions. And I specifically just point to Section 48, where he talked about contract, wanting to cut into 10% of the full-time faculty by eliminating them. And it really raises grave concerns. Since we came here in the past, we talked about Dr. Astrab, we talked about the problems, yet the contract was renewed for Dr. Astrab, ultimately at a cost of over $360,000 or in that ballpark, to allow him to walk away. And then now it's 10% of the full-time faculty that John wanted us to modify. So I don't know what message came back to the board about a non-layoff clause and so forth, but it was about 10% per year for the extent of the contract that John wanted us to write a provision into that contract extension. Other than that, we had a deal.
I haven't heard that before.
Well, that's what I hope that you have the opportunity then to go back and to discuss this and to ask John. I hope that the presentation wasn't made to you. I don't have an opportunity to come to speak to you other than these monthly meetings. And when John walked in and he told me that he spoke to Peter B. and that he also spoke to the Board of Trustees and that the non-starter on our part was what we said right from the beginning, that we were entering into this because of the job protection, the job clause, and then that's what this was about. John is requesting that 10% of tenured faculty, due to, if there becomes a financial concern, would be terminated. And that was a non-starter. So those were some of the points I wanted to discuss
So you're
today.
saying that's a demand by the college in contract negotiations?
What John wanted to do, what John brought forth right from the beginning, was that in Section 48 of the contract, there's mechanisms in place, should there become a financial problem, that says how you would start to solve that problem. And one of the things was, in a list specifically, and John said that we are expensive, and as a result of that, he wanted a provision to be drafted that said that we were...
You were what?
Expensive.
That we were expensive, that the full-time faculty were expensive.
I apologize, Debbie. I don't have my notes from the
Okay.
meeting with me. And obviously, John Gross is not here to refute some of the things that you're saying.
Right.
I think some of them, to my recollection, are a bit of a mischaracterization. But as you rightly pointed out, this is probably, because we don't have the full board here, it's probably not the appropriate time to get into the specifics and details of that.
Okay, and I understand that, but since you don't have another date set, it's not like you said to me, we're going to be meeting on October 3rd, and I'd say, okay, I could wait another week or two.
Correct, and the reason being because of the unforeseen circumstances that led to the lack of a quorum today.
Okay.
Those same unforeseen circumstances led to us not being able to have a date certain at this time.
I understand that, but from the same token, I just want those of you that are here to understand that this was a problem, that there was going to be, and you can go back and look at your notes, and I have my notes, and I have my labor representative here today. We wish we had the opportunity to discuss this in length with you. And sometimes it's very problematic when you come up here, and I don't have notes in front of me. I'm not bulleting anything. I'm going through my recollection. I lived this for 18 months. I was told that we were very, very close and we should be able to resolve this. And that was not that case. We were cut off on September 5th, and we were told that it was a result of actions by this board and also from a conversation with the county attorney with Peter B.
I do remember the September
Peter B.
5th meeting, and I do not recall anyone being cut off. So
I'm just saying that we were cut off with a contract extension because there's no way that the NCCFT would ever agree to a clause that went against Section 48 that said that 10% of the faculty would be able to be terminated. And that's what John was requesting of us. So when I say cut off, that's a non-starter that 18 months ago we stated. So again, we don't have our notes. I don't want to go back and forth, but we know what we heard. We have a transcript of what happened that particular day. We take notes on everything, and that's what it was. So I just asked that, obviously I know I can't ask for an action, it's not an official meeting, but that maybe you go back and you speak amongst yourselves. You were there, Mr. Cron. And anyone on this board, feel free to contact us. Contact me, because I don't have an opportunity to speak to you individually, other than here, and even then, that's not individually, to hear our side of it. I mean, we worked for 18 months on this.
I get phone calls from people all the time.
And well,
And I'll tell you something, I was spoken to before that meeting, and I don't want to say by whom, but was told that was going to be, they were going to go after retention. So I said, what does that mean? And go after the job security. I said, well, that means tenure means nothing, and job protection means nothing. That's the start of World War III. I disagree with that. There's another way to handle something like that, and I was told, we've got to rush into a meeting. And so if
Mr. Cornachio, I question the appropriateness of characterizing something as the start of World War III.
And
that
I disagree vehemently with
a
that
situation that we're trying
but
to,
there was no
that we're not
such board
trying to
meeting on it.
inflame.
I want you to know that. And if anybody said there was a board meeting on it, they told an untruth.
okay. All right, obviously, I'm not looking for this to blow up right now. I want to bring it to your attention. It was something that I was going to be discussing today, but Mr. Cornachio just said that it just points to the fact that I've expressed my concern. I want to make sure that each one of you as individuals had an opportunity to look at this. This extension was something that would start to heal this campus. It would give us the ability to work with our new leader or whoever the potential new leader is going to be. I just bring this to you, and I urge you to go back and look at that. I mean, the deal that was on the table was just about ready to be signed off on.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you.
All right.
I apologize.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Of course.
Just for clarification.
Of course you can.
Just want to clarify, when you say on September 5th you feel that it was cut off, was there anything that was said by John or anyone that you felt that when they said, okay, you know what, we're not going to agree, so we're going to just end it here, and pretty much the board agreed on not going forward as to any further? Was there anything that was said or anybody's behalf that you felt that way?
Yes. Yes.
And if you don't mind me asking, who?
Well, if I
Debbie,
could,
let me ask you, do you think it's appropriate that we go into the details of contract negotiations in public? And my opinion is that is not appropriate, but
well, I would agree that if we were still in contract negotiations that we wouldn't, but since what ended up happening on September 5th basically said that the Board of Trustees, this is what we were told, that the Board of Trustees and the county attorney, Peter B., which again, if I went to see Peter B., I would have probably framed it very differently. I would have framed that this is going to bring healing to this institution and it was a great extension. And, it's all about how you frame things. I agree with you, then I wouldn't be speaking publicly, but pretty much the fact that I was told by John Gross that the deal, we weren't going to be getting anywhere because we weren't going to agree that, we were not going to agree that you could eliminate 10% of tenured faculty members based on the fact that it throws everything off course. And having said that, then, I think that it's not a bad idea for this to come out into the public forum so that people know what we're up against here. Because this is something that will create, for lack of a better word, a World War III here. There's no reason for this.
I appreciate your optimism in that regard. Thank you.
If I may, Mr. Santos, so you're asking us to revisit this issue?
I am. I'm asking you to revisit
And I'm
this.
sure the board will certainly do that. I wanted to address the fact that we don't have a quorum. As you know, John Durso has resigned.
Yes, I do.
And Mary Adams is ill. And unfortunately, as a result of John Durso, Mary Adams, and Mr. Donnelly not being present, we don't have a quorum. It's not because we wanted to inconvenience anyone. We are inconvenienced as well. So respectfully, hopefully within the next couple of weeks, we can have another meeting with a quorum and we can address the important issues that you've raised. But we will, as a group, revisit the issue.
Okay, thank you very much. As long as you look at that section 48, that's critical right now. Thank you.
And, well, I apologize. I don't know if Faruque's question was answered.
A specific person? Well, when someone walks in, you have three people on the other side. Mr. Prime was there, and it was Donna Hogan, and it was John Gross. When John Gross came in, and we really want to get this out there, we waited a half hour for John Gross to come in, which I thought was pretty rude, to be honest with you. We were sitting there, had no idea what was going on. No, I think, I think the board needs to hear this, though, because we went through 18 months of this. And you don't get to hear all of this.
John also, the first thing that John told you that he was awaiting a phone call from Peter B., and then he immediately apologized for the lateness?
No, what I heard was he said to Claudia, did you get stuck in traffic from coming in from Manhattan? That's what I heard. And Claudia said, absolutely not. That's exactly the conversation. And they're here and they could probably get up and tell you what they heard. But anyway, that's what we heard. So when John came in and he said that he had a conversation with the Board of Trustees and with Peter B. from the county, and that they would never agree to a clause that said no layoffs. The only reason that clause ever entered into the picture was because John was pushing for Section 48, which said that he wanted to modify Section 48, and as a result of Section 48, he wanted elimination of 10% of tenured faculty on a yearly basis for the extension. And I said no, but I had said no 18 months ago. So we went through 18 months of this. We went through major expenses.
Thank you, Debbie.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
My position is the problem on my annoyance is that apparently they were told that the Board of Trustees took a certain action. This board can only act pursuant to public notice at a meeting by quorum on a vote. And that never happened. That's my observation.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I apologize for not make any clear from the beginning, we do, because time is always going to be a factor, we do have to limit the speakers to 3 minutes. Jim Hoyt. Jim Hoyt? See no hands. Frank Resenda.
I don't know if you don't have a quorum how you can make rules, but I'll keep mine to 3 minutes. Good morning, my name is Frank Resenda, Vice President of NCCFT. As the fall semester began, the NCCFT was feeling confident that after 18 months we were about to reach an agreement with the college, extending the contract for 3 additional years. After all, we have been fed your story of financial ruin for several years now, and believing it came to the table time and again with offers to help. You rejected all our offers that would have saved the college millions of dollars, always saying it wasn't enough. Whether or not our offers were enough, you saved nothing by rejecting us. On September 5th, the real agenda became clear. We were told to keep our money. You could not live with a job security clause. As a matter of fact, you wanted to create a mechanism whereby you can eliminate 10% of the tenured workforce each year of the extension. This was never about the money. Just like the lost temporary lines were never about the money, Link was never about the money, sabbaticals were never about the money, and the Senate was never about the money. It is an ideology of control that you have brought to this campus. Members of this board and administration, along with your attorneys, demonstrate an anti-student, anti-education, anti-professor, anti-labor agenda. Both Mr. Prime and Ms. Hogan were, if John Gross were the only person sitting at the table, I might think he was making this up. However, both Mr. Prime and Ms. Hogan were also sitting at the table. Therefore, it makes sense that it is the combined will of the board and this administration, without Dr. Astrab at the helm, whose intent is to dismantle our campus, our students' education, our livelihoods, and destroy the welfare of our families. You have already shattered the lives of the lost temporary faculty, and the campus will never know the incalculable loss due to their disappearance. This is unacceptable to the students and should be, and to the faculty. Students come to Nassau for a first-class affordable education. We, the faculty, provide that first-class education. We are the reason students are here. We are the reason students succeed. I have yet to hear a student express their reasons to attend Nassau or because of the administration, ban of Pegasus, or the politically appointed Board of Trustees. Your jobs are to provide us with the required political, financial, logistical assistance so that we can fulfill the mission of this campus. Our job is to educate our students. We have a governance structure that ensures quality control. Our students have grown and prospered under our tutelage. We need leadership that understands and supports us, not leadership that wants to undermine and destroy us. Even without Dr. Astrab, we carry on with the same agenda. I don't know how we're supposed to work with the board and an administration who are on a mission to undo everything that we have dedicated our professional lives to and subject us to personal ruin. I don't know how we're supposed to find a new president who will convince us that he is not on your side, but on ours and our students. Yet I think we're about to find out. Gentlemen, welcome to the fall semester.
Kimberly Reiser. Seeing no hands. Baron Siminoff.
Dr. Baron Siminoff, I'm the Secretary of the Union. I had 2 things I was going to say, but I'm just going to, since you don't have a quorum, this is not on the record, I'm only going to discuss this one issue. And it continues, obviously, the theme that Debbie started and Frank. And what I really want to say is, what the union has just said to you convey to you and to us? I think it tells you that it's this union and this faculty that's devoted to the well-being of the college. It's really we who stand as its guardian. It is we who are concerned with its fiscal well-being and its ability to fulfill this college's mission to our students. Remember, the mission is to the students. It's not to outside contractors. It's not to political ambition. The mission is to our students. Yet once again, this board turns a blind eye to those who serve it best. Instead, this board has hired John Gross from Ingram and Smith, expending huge sums of money to attack this faculty. And I think Debbie just explained how that's happening. And I wish, of course, I could tell you the exact sum charged for those fees and disbursements for all the attention lavished on us by Mr. Gross. But unfortunately, his in-house surrogates stonewall their efforts to see these bills. So now we're all in New York Supreme Court where, you guessed it, Mr. Rhodes continues to rack up bills to defend the college from complying with the law. And of course, there's that little matter of acting as this board's chief negotiator for the past 18 months with the union on negotiations, which I think were really pre-designed for failure. How much money, I wonder, has this college squandered on this? Well, you know, I'm sure you won't tell us, so I can foil it. It seems ironic to me that this board expends so much money to rid itself of a faculty that's made this the #1 community college in the state and in the top tier nationally. Most people celebrate success and they cherish that which is responsible for it. And that's this faculty, and it's the support that we give our students, and it's our students. That's our mission. Unfortunately, it seems that most of the members of this board, and I'm not saying all, but most, for reasons honestly I can't fathom, have chosen instead to declare war on this faculty. And when you're talking about laying off 10% of faculty a year, that's what that means. And I think it's very unfortunate that
30 seconds.
it's unfortunate that when this college this is a #1 community college in the state, that you don't want to maintain that quality. If you don't understand that it's teaching, full-time teachers, educators, that make this the #1 community college, I'm not sure what you're doing on this board. You're supposed to act as trustees, not as a demolition derby here, okay?
Excuse me, just wanted to ask you something real quick.
Sure.
I mean, you mentioned, you know, one of the first sentences you used, the board served as a blind eye. I just want a clarification on that. Are you referring that to the board members as,
No,
you know, are you referring to John Gross? Because I see that that's where you headed. I just want to understand
No, I said
whom you're referring the
I
blind eye
said
to.
the board turns a blind eye to those who serve it best, which are its teachers. It's full-time faculty.
So
In
the
other words,
board is,
right, the
Yeah.
board seems to dismiss the full-time faculty in the role that we're playing here. They don't seem to really appreciate the fact that we're the service providers to our students. This is the purpose of this college. The purpose is to educate. If it's not to educate, it shouldn't exist.
The board's never said that. Maybe individuals have said it, maybe servants of the college have said it. but the
Well,
board-
I said not all, I said not, and I made the point that not everybody on the board is, but that's what that's
I don't believe that
basically,
any individuals ever said
but
that.
that's basically what your policies are.
I'm just clarifying. I know
That's fine.
it's been
That's
intimated
fine,
that
but that's
somebody has said
basically
that.
what
I
the
don't believe
policies
anyone
are
has said that.
amounting to. The policies that you seem to be implementing is that John Gross is your choice. You contracted with them, we didn't. So when your lawyer, who's representing you and speaking for you, because lawyers only speak for their clients, isn't that correct?
That's correct.
So if he represents to us that he wants us to get rid of 10% of our faculty a year, what is that telling us? If he's not speaking for you, then maybe you should get another lawyer who doesn't speak out of turn.
Thank
If
you.
he is speaking
I know.
for you,
Thank you.
it's a problem.
I got a question. Was that demand you're talking about, that plank, whatever it is, was that in writing?
I don't know. I didn't.
Reduction of 10%. Was that in writing?
I don't know. Was it in writing?
Because I'd like to see something in writing about it.
Nothing was in writing.
No, but when you go to the negotiations, as we were working on at that time, and I mentioned before who the individuals were that were there was nothing that was in writing. John came in during the first meeting 18 months ago, whenever it was, and he stated that Section 48 was a problem. I'm kind of shocked that you aren't all aware that this was under discussion, because it didn't just surface now on September 5th. And he said that this was the goal of Section 48, that we were expensive as full-time faculty, and he wanted the elimination of 10% of full-time tenured faculty members. And that's where that came. But we didn't have anything in writing. We have our notes. You have your notes. You go back and forth. That's what you do at negotiation. And we immediately said that the reason we were entering into the extension, and we put all these financial give-backs for millions of dollars, was so that we had job security. We're already down 100 full-time faculty members. Do you know how many millions of dollars were saved by that? Our numbers are down from 758 to approximately 680. You've got 100 full-time faculty members right there.
So, I mean, no, there was nothing in writing, but this conversation took place for 18 months. And I'm sure if you ask him, I mean, I would hope he's going to be honest and tell you that this was the crux of the problem. He brought 3 things back that day on September 5th.
Thank you. Thank you, Karen. I would note that Kimberly Weiser just entered, and I would just extend to her the time to speak. And I just would remind everyone to 3 minutes. And by the way, Kimberly, I know that you entered late, so you didn't hear the announcement about the lack of a quorum. And just a caveat that anything that you say is not on any official record because there are no official minutes.
Right. Thank you very much. Good morning. Because this is not an official meeting of the board, I am not going to make the comments that I wish to make because there's no quorum. My remarks need to be on record. I'm very disappointed, I'm sure you are as well, that there's not a quorum. But at the next board meeting, did you announce when that would be?
No.
Okay. At the next board meeting, I will be making official remarks on behalf of the Senate, and I am going to be calling for immediate board action. So it's a very important item, and I'm disappointed that I cannot bring this forward. Thank you.
First, I'd ask if Logan Kenny and Pierre Mobilaire are here.
Due to the fact there was no quorum, they had class and they attended the class, and they will be speaking at the next board meeting. Yeah.
He is the treasurer, right?
Yeah, Pierre is the treasurer, and Logan Kenny is the president of student government.
David Boyero.
I wait my time to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Oyew. Michael Sawyer.
Thank you, Mr. Bryan. I also had a statement I was going to make, but in the absence of a quorum, I won't. There were 2 items of concern to me that I'd like to bring to the attention of the board. One is the academic affairs leadership at the college, and the other is your intention, I would hope, to implement a search for the president of the college, and I was going to give you some advice on that. But I'd rather hold off until you have the next meeting.
Thank you. David Stern.
Good morning. First, I want to thank the board for addressing the college community's concern and accepting President Astrap's resignation. Our hope is this is not the end, but a beginning of the college community working together, not at each other. And I think Ken has made significant efforts to promote this new collaboration. The board's action convinced me that you care about NCC and its mission as much as the faculty. With this in mind, we need to continue to move in a positive direction. I now would like to speak more as a Nassau County resident and taxpayer regarding the board's long-term hired counsel, Mr. John Gross. The time has come for the board to conduct a performance-based evaluation of his services. His firm's contract cost the college the equivalent of several of full-time faculty salaries. However, the benefit is really dubious. Over the past several years, his firm has lost almost every PERB case that has been brought against the college. The board really needs to assess if this is the best use of our budget. I mean, we do have 3 counsel, 3 attorneys on, that's on salary here, some of which are from his firm. So I guess we benefit from that experience. The board needs to assess, especially assess this due to our limited budget. His approach has been to extend contract negotiations as long as possible. This may benefit his bottom line, but it certainly is not clear how it benefits the college's bottom line as far as spending unnecessary money for extended contract negotiations. We need the council to embrace the newfound collaboration on campus, and instead of having his approach, again, Mr. Gross's approach, which has been to be pushing decisive, non-negotiable terms. So I urge you to act. Okay, thank you.
Phil Nicholson. Seeing no hands, there are no more speakers listed. I would just note again that the next scheduled Financing and Capital Committee meeting will be set for a date certain in accordance with the rules of the Board of Trustees, as will the next general body meeting. Thank you all for your attendance this morning.